Yes, we're literally running. Why are you looking at all this stuff?
I don't know. Steve didn't look ready over there.
Do you want me?
Okay, let's go ahead and start.
Okay. We're back again this week with Dr. Greg. Greg is back in Qatar from Myanmar, and he's going to be chatting with us today. And today is going to be different from our other podcast because it's going to be very much driven by Greg's passion.
Well, thank you, Tammy. It's a pleasure to be back.
We're happy to have you.
Always a joy to be sitting here with you.
Always a joy.
Yes. Anyway, passion. Interesting. It's, you could think of all kinds of different things when you think about passion. And when you told me that was going to be the subject today, I had to stop and think, what is passion? And really, I started to think about what it is that really is a joy for me. What do I look forward to every day? And I realized, I think I'm one of the luckiest people in the world, and I say this all the time, because I get up every morning and I go to a job that I enjoy. I get to work with people I enjoy, and it's because really what I'm about is about students and learning, and I get to do that every single day. It's like no matter what I'm doing in my job, ultimately it's about kids and learning. Which
is changing lives, really. When we talk about passion for and within education, we're talking about changing somebody's life. You're impacting a student's life to the point that you're changing their stars, really, in many cases.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. I had an opportunity just about a week or so ago when I was talking to our middle school students at our school, and we were talking about service learning at the time, and I told them, I said, one of the things that I learned very early on in my life was the importance of having an impact. I think, I can't even remember where I first heard it, but very young I heard the saying that, if you have an impact on the life of one person, you have an impact on the life of many people. Because the idea is that, you impact one person and then, they go through life, and because of the impact you had on them, they impact other people around them, and it's, kind of like the paying it forward thing,
so
right?
on and so on and so on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know that appears in many religious texts and so forth.
It does.
And of course I didn't realize that at the time, but it really has become a part of what I believe in. And in many ways has a lot to do with why I got into education. And I'm very fortunate in the fact that I have a job where I can have an impact on many people. Right. But even in my job, some people don't necessarily choose to do that. But it is something that does drive me, and it's because I love being able to know that I can have an impact on other people.
Well, is this what just for background? For Dr. Greg has been in leadership now for 18 years, if I'm not mistaken, and in education for over 30 years. So was that impact and passion, is that what drove you to get into leadership so you could make a difference in teachers' lives and communities' lives? Because when we think about teachers and passion or leaders and passion, we think a lot about the student, the actual student, where you're kind of thinking of it as a tangible thing. But as a leader, it's really not like that, because you're dealing with a lot more of the outside. There's a lot more noise happening in your mind about seeing what your passion is. So I think you'd have to be pretty dedicated and pretty aware of who you are and where you want your passion to lie. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, and it's interesting, when I used to teach, I loved teaching, and I enjoyed it so much. And when I had several people while I was teaching encouraged me to go into administration. And for a long time I put it off. I was not interested. I didn't want to leave the classroom. I liked what I was doing. And then when I first went into administration, it was a concern of mine that how am I going to continue to have that, that interaction with students? How am I going to continue to be able to have the type of impact I was used to having? And it's something then that I had to make a conscious effort about, to make sure that I continued to interact with students, to find ways to constantly remind myself of why it is that I'm here and what it is that I'm doing, and the importance of everything, everything I'm doing, whether it's hiring teachers, making sure I'm hiring teachers who also are passionate about teaching, passionate about being in the classroom. In fact, it's interesting, when we hire, we talk about what it is that we want to find in teachers when we're interviewing them, and we talk about
interesting.
Yeah, and we talk about that we're obviously looking for people who are qualified.
Yep.
But then in the discussions that we're having with people when we're interviewing, we look for people who are focused, who are fairly self-aware. In other words, have a sense of what they're all about, and can provide specific examples that helps us to get to know them. But the biggest thing that we look for is, are those people passionate about learning? Are they passionate about working with the kids and providing as good an experience as they possibly can for children? And by focusing in on those things, I think we do a really good job of recruiting teachers, because we're looking for, in a sense, almost like-minded individuals who believe in having an impact on children.
Well, that's interesting. So how do you see, you make this conscious effort, you obviously have meetings about hiring. How do you see, because passion's a big word and everybody wants to feel passionate. So how do you see that passion coming across in classrooms or in students, or is it focused on outcomes? Is it focused on something less tangible than that, where you just see happy children? Is it focused on service learning?
Yeah. Well, again, when we're talking about passion and how that passion comes out, when we're talking about talking to teachers, what we want to hear is people, as they describe the experiences that they provide in the class, there's a sense of excitement, a sense of really caring about the kids and the individual child as well as the whole group, but really making sure that they're looking after those individual needs of students, that they're really interested in having that impact there. And it's the same thing when we go out and we observe students in the classroom, we observe teachers in the classroom. We're looking, are those kids excited? Are those kids enjoying the experience that they're learning, or are they just sitting at desks doing worksheets? And that's very, very important to us as we look around at what's happening in our school.
Okay, so then if you were at a school that didn't maybe have the hiring practices that you were able to have, but still had a principal that was passionate, how would you guide him in how to make passion apparent in those classrooms or in those, because it's a luxury.
Right.
I think passion in your teachers is a luxury. I think being able to instill passion in your teachers is a gift.
Well, and again, part of it for us is constantly bringing the discussion back to what's important. We were very fortunate, I think, I've been very fortunate at the schools that I've been at, and particularly at the school that I'm at in Myanmar right now, where I believe that the community really feels the same way. And so we're able to focus on that a lot in our leadership team meetings. As a leadership team, for example, we talk about our vision and what's the vision for the school, and how do we see that vision playing out every day. We have it, we call it vision stories, and every week in our leadership team meeting we talk about what are the vision stories that are going on in our school right now. How are we going to recognize those and continue to encourage them? And then we do it. We recognize it. We recognize it with notes. We recognize it.
Can you give us an example of a vision story? That is a term I've never heard, and I know exactly what you're saying. So you literally sit around with your group, and you talk about your vision. So what do you know of that happened in our community this week that we can add to our vision story? Am I looking at it right? It's like a media board story.
Yeah, I guess probably the same.
Okay, can you give us an example? That's cool. I love this.
Give me a moment. And to be honest, I mean, the whole idea of the vision stories came out of our leadership retreat. So every year we have a leadership retreat, and in the retreat we focus on the mission and vision and how we're developing that further, and what else we can do. And in our last leadership retreat, somebody, I can't remember who, said, we should be focusing on the vision and vision stories, things that we see going on that are really promoting the vision.
I really like that. I really think that is such a good way to drive the passion you have for truly acknowledging passion, and the teachers who are delivering that to you. I mean, you're really putting your money where your mouth is there, Greg. So I love that.
But it's not just the teachers too. We look for it everywhere. And we have some strategic themes that drive our mission and vision. And so within those strategic themes, then those are the things that we're looking at, at where are things happening. For example, I mentioned service learning before. If
Yes.
we see something that's really happening that's great within service learning, then we'll make a point to recognize that. We were focusing on inclusive education. If we have somebody who has really done a great job with with inclusive education, then we will recognize that person. We'll send them a note. We'll talk about it in a faculty meeting. We make sure that we are recognizing that, and that people know that it's important to us.
I love it 'cause it means that you're actually acknowledging people, but they feel like you have put thought.
Yeah.
It's a thoughtful acknowledgement of you have understood what I've asked for in passion.
Right.
For our students and for their learning.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that your class was getting all A's.
No,
it means that somebody in your class had a breakthrough, or you gave it your all, and this is something we embrace in this community. I think that's wonderful. I love the idea of the vision story. I think that's great. I think that's really interesting.
It's been a nice addition to our leadership team discussions, and like I said, it's really all about driving our guiding statements, our mission, and our vision, and those have been created to support all of that as well. I mean, it's all about compassion, which we talked about last.
We did,
here, and about our vision is about developing students who are going to make a difference in the world, right? Which again comes back to what we were talking about earlier, that ability to have an impact. We want our students to learn to have an impact, and so the things that we're doing in the school are all about working towards it. So when students walk out of our school, that's what we hope is going to happen, that they will have developed the skills so that they can go out in the world and have an impact as well.
So when you have these monthly meetings and you're talking about a
weekly meeting.
Weekly meeting. Oh, sorry, excuse me.
Weekly meeting.
This is a great tip, by the way. I really like that idea a lot. As you can see, I didn't know this, and normally I know everything Greg's going to say. In this case, I didn't. So we
want to surprise you.
Well, you did.
There you go.
So when you have these weekly meetings and you talk, is it only geared towards teachers, or do you acknowledge students too, where you're actually giving them the gift of passion too in an indirect
throughout,
way?
and it's
very good.
Could be like, for example, we have some of our support staff right now who have been
interesting.
I don't even know how to say the word, but it's some type of composting.
Okay.
But anyway, they've learned about it so that they can.
They're being environmentally aware.
Yes, so that they can then teach students about it and be engaged with the students and help them to be more environmentally conscious. And so that's part of our vision story. And,
very interesting.
And so these are things that become very important to us, and then we communicate them out to the larger community as well. Okay. And so lots of good things.
Well, it's nice because then your parents also know that this is it's like we talked about before with compassion. You are very clear in who you are, who the school, where they're going, and and everything is driven towards one goal, right?
And in fact, we try talking about parents. We try to involve them in the process.
Oh, interesting. So how do you do that?
Well, so right now we're in the process of developing a speakers bureau, and in the speakers bureau we're identifying.
So apparently, Greg tells me nothing anymore, which is fine. Okay, go ahead.
So we're in the process of developing a speakers bureau,
right?
And so that we have parents who also can support us. We've taken on the Sustainable Development Goals as a part of this whole idea of having an impact and developing kids who will make a difference in the world. So we're focusing a lot of that on the Sustainable Development Goals. And so we're developing lists of parents who can come in and speak about the Sustainable Development Goals or different goals within that. And so we have parents who can do that. And we also have, for example, we've taken on the building of a school, up in Shawn State, which is a remote section of Myanmar.
Okay.
And so we have parents who are involved in that project as well.
So can you tell me how that started, how that came about, and is it now open?
Yeah, so with that we're working with an organization called United World Schools.
Okay.
And when we decided to focus on service, we wanted to be able to reach out. We thought, with service, if we're going to do a service, we should be involved in education. And so we were looking for a way to be engaged in education in Myanmar. And we ended up connecting up with this organization, United World Schools. And in the process of deciding whether or not we were going to work with them, we decided to go and visit one of their schools in Cambodia.
Oh, okay.
They were new to Myanmar, so they didn't have much there yet. And so we decided to go to Cambodia, visit one of the schools there. So a group of us, there was some faculty, there was some parents, there was some students, and we all went there and visited there.
I'm just going to interrupt you. I think it's really important to acknowledge that as a leader, you've made it a point to include your community within your passion and include, like you said earlier, like-minded people, because now you're saying you're hitting on teachers, you're hitting on students, you're hitting on parents. So everybody has the same passion for service learning.
Well, and I'll come back to that in just a moment
Okay.
as well. But let me just finish with UWS. So we went there and visited there and decided that this was a program we wanted to be involved with.
Okay.
And so then we've made it a school-wide community
Wow.
process. We have events at school that are designed around supporting this. It was around the building of the school in Shan State. The school is now built. And now we're supporting that school, and we're integrating aspects of it into our own curriculum, so our students are engaged with it. So it really is a whole school process. But going back to getting the community involved, I mean, part of what's driving our school at the moment is our mission and vision, and then the strategic themes that support that.
Right.
And in developing those, we had had community involvement with that as well. We had a consultant who came in and he met with a large group of our community, approximately 300 different people who all had then input into the direction of the school. So right now, I believe that there's a very large amount of ownership in the identity of the school and the mission and vision and the strategic themes, and they really have become a part of who we are, and we talk about them constantly and explore them. It even got to a point where I was talking to a group of students at one point last spring, and we were I can't even remember what the project was, but we were discussing a project, and I said, "Oh, that's a great spot to infuse the mission and the vision of the school." And this one girl looked at me and she said, "Dr. Hedger, all we talk about is the mission and the vision of the school. Do we need to do it again?"
And as a leader, that's exactly what you want to hear. But it's what you said earlier. It was infused in you to have passion, one person at a time, and then it's you literally have a community that you have given your passion to that are now on board, that are spreading that passion throughout Myanmar.
And it's fantastic to see, and it's not just me. I mean, it's a
group effort.
I think it's important to recognize that I happen to believe in this, but I was pleasantly surprised when this is also what the community decided.
Right.
And it wasn't. It's how I try to live. Right. But I was very happy when our community, after working with this consultant, came up with the mission and vision that way. And so it's been fantastic.
Well, now I know you don't like it when I say, "Oh, well, this was your thing, and you brought it to you like to share the wealth, for lack of a better word. You like to share it around that, no, it was a group effort.
Well, it really was.
But if we're talking about somebody being able to do that, if you have a passionate leader, like I said, somewhere else, and they want to bring this to their community and to their school, how would you counsel them into making it happen? Because we can't choose our communities.
No,
as educational leaders, we go places, we see, we don't know before we get there. So while I know you do share the good of what comes out and everyone's passion, it's not a lone effort, how do you go out and identify, this is something that I really think we can sink our teeth into because I'm passionate about it?
Well, to begin with, I think, first of all, the biggest thing is that we live what we believe in. And, and that's what I try to live. I try to live, a life in which I believe I'm making a difference. Okay? Maybe other people don't agree. I've got no idea. but that's the life I try to live. And but then as far as bringing the community along, I mean, the community, any decision that you make about a community needs to be a community effort. I mean, it's quite possible when the consultant came in that the mission and vision of the school might have been something else. I mean, really, looking back on it, I really anticipated that what was going to happen is we were going to take the mission and vision that we had at the time and just tweak it a little bit, right? But in fact, what ended up happening was a whole new mission and vision that really, surprisingly to me, was very much aligned with my beliefs, and it really worked out. But I also think that's because that in Myanmar anyway, the school community we have there is a lot of people who share my thoughts about having an impact.
And how long had you been there that this transpired?
Second year I was there.
So it was year 2.
Right.
Were you feeling fairly comfortable at that point that you already, been having discussions with your community? Had you picked sort of a leadership team that you knew that were on the same wavelength as you?
So one of the things that I try to do in a school every year is I do a SWOT analysis. And, where I meet with different people within the community and hear about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that they see. And so certainly as a result of those SWOT analyses, and then we also do surveys and so forth, but I certainly had a sense of what was important to the community, but I really had no idea how that was actually going to end up playing out. It was, like I said, I was very pleasantly surprised.
Well, and I think it's great with the other school. I think that everything that we do, especially now, education is on the cusp of changing quite a bit. And hopefully change does come, because we're very driven, as you and I have talked about before, in things outside of compassion. I believe really firmly we should be going back that way in the age we live in now of social media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So then let me ask, when you say that when you hire teachers, you talk, what kind of questions would you ask a teacher? And I'm asking this because people tend to like to come away with a couple of tips, especially if they're very interested in something. And your passion does come across, Greg, it really does. That you're very passionate about the kids being happy at school and that they're learning to be good people.
Right. So, we ask questions that try to get to the root of what goes on in a person's classroom. So, we'll ask things like, if I was to walk in your classroom, what kinds of things would I see going on? And when somebody responds to that, what we're looking to hear is excitement about learning, engaging activities, and so forth. Or we might ask somebody to describe a lesson for us. I mean, these are not really unusual questions, but there are opportunities for us to listen and listen for that passion. The other thing that that just recently I've started to ask people about is to talk to me about a time that they made a mistake. That they wish they would have done something different, because people who are passionate but also very comfortable in what they're doing will talk about that, and we'll show that they reflect upon.
Oh, very interesting.
And that tells me a lot about a person too. Are they self-aware? And because again, people who are self-aware then are also going to be more focused and are going to be thinking about how best to meet the needs of students and so forth.
Well, just the ability to reflect and think, I probably could have handled this better.
Right.
I totally see what you're saying, because it does take somebody who is passionate about their students developing to be able to look back and think, I made a mistake there.
Right.
I could have done this better, and that's okay. Because now I know better for next time. Oh, that's a really interesting question to ask. So what you're saying, it's more about the answers to the questions.
No, it's not the answers to the question so much as how they answer. What kinds of things are we hearing about? So there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer. It's more about how they're answering. What kinds of things are we hearing? And so it's funny. I was talking to somebody just the other day, and they were asking me for advice on how to answer questions in an interview. And I was explaining, there's not necessarily right and wrong answers. I mean, maybe there are occasionally, but it's all about you getting across what you believe in, and then is that a match for the school? And different schools have different needs and are looking for different things. And these just happen to be the things that we're looking for.
Oh, very good. That's very... So let me ask you this too. So when we talk about passion, and your passion's obviously education, your passion is clearly developing the whole child, and it's important to you that they come out being self-confident, that they leave your school knowing they can tackle things and have an impact.
And that they can have an impact, exactly.
So, do you have an alumni association? Is that something that also feeds back into the schools?
So at the moment, I would say our alumni association is developing.
Okay.
It's funny, we have a lot of alumni from our school.
okay.
I mean, we've been around
Okay.
since for 67 years or something.
Oh,
like
wow.
that. I mean,
Okay.
so I can't remember the exact
I
number,
didn't know
but
that.
it's our school's been around for a long time.
Okay.
So obviously, lots of alumni. We're working on trying to organize the alumni. The thing that's interesting is a lot of our alumni are organized, but they've organized on their own. If you go on Facebook, there's all kinds of different ISY alumni groups,
Okay.
and none of them have anything to do with us. And we've reached out to some alumni and said, we want to, kind of organize an alumni group. And they're like, well, I'm already part of one.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And so it's, they tend to be very tight with the people that they graduate with.
Okay, but so what about giving back to the school?
And
Is that something you're going to develop
Well, actually,
then?
some of them do. I mean, for example, we have one member of our alumni who's actually a very famous fighter, professional fighter.
Really?
Very famous.
Wow, okay.
I forget what he's called, the Myanmar Python.
Well, good. Then he's passionate about
yes,
that.
he's very passionate. But the thing that's interesting, he's also very passionate about learning. And so he comes back every once in a while to our school and he talks with the kids about, about the role of education and how important it is. And then we have other alumni who actually come back on a regular basis and do things for the support staff. And they run a breakfast for them once a year just to kind of give back to them and to say thank you.
Okay.
But I think that also reflects the fact that those people made an impact on those alumni's lives.
Absolutely.
When they were students. It really is it's a great community to be a part of, and it really is a lot of people who believe in making a difference.
So when you talk to your students, do you see in them, or are they able to articulate to you, even the older ones? Does your school go all the way up to graduation?
We go up to grade 12.
Yeah. Okay, so are they able to articulate to you that they felt they were in a school that really was passionate about their education, that really cared about them as a student, as a human being, as they developed? Is that something that you get back from them yet, or is that?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you bring that up. We have just recently, just last year, started to survey our alumni.
Okay.
Just surveying the most recent graduating class.
Yeah, so, and it's not that I'm trying to put you on. It's people like to hear there's tangible evidence. It's very easy. Oh, I'm very passionate about education. I'm very passionate. So I know I put you a bit on the spot.
Well, but hold on there. Let me just finish.
A survey.
So we started the survey. So that will hopefully give us data over time.
Yes.
But the other thing we started, I guess it was 2 years ago now, is we have an annual award that we give out to somebody who's a part of our community who really gives back to people. And so, people are nominated for it. We've had 2 years where we've given it out now. The first year it actually went to an alumni of our school.
Wow.
It's a gentleman who, he runs a business, a large business in Myanmar now, but through his business practices, makes sure that he's looking after the people in his employment, gives back to the larger community.
I think that is great. So it doesn't matter if there's someone at your school right now. You're not being gratuitous in who gets it.
Absolutely.
You are really putting thought into this is a good example of who we are that we can all learn
and
from.
It's wow. It can be anybody anybody can receive the award who is connected to our community.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And so what we want to do through that is we also want to develop models for our students.
Yes.
People that say, we can say these are people who are giving back. These are examples of how you can have an impact after you've left ISY, and how you can have an impact. I mean, it's easy for me to say because I'm sitting here. I'm going to a school every day. I mean, I have the opportunity to very clearly have an impact. But what we also want people to understand is, it doesn't matter what kind of employment you go into. You can, we want our students to know you can go into business. You can become a lawyer. You can become a banker. But you can still choose to live a life of making a difference.
I really, really like that too, because it speaks to your passion. It speaks to you being committed to your passion. This isn't just something I want to see I truly want my students to understand about these things. I'm passionate about them being compassionate people, for example. And that's a really good example. He's not even present at your school right now, but what you said really resonates with me. This is somebody that you can say, he left this school and he takes care of the people who work. So I think that's great.
Absolutely.
I think that's a really good example of
so it's been
give back.
Yeah, we're obviously developing all kinds of things as we go along and trying to explore different ways of encouraging our students to see themselves as people who can make a difference. But these are little things that we're getting going, and again, trying to make it a community effort.
Right. So if you were going to pick 2 things that you feel have the greatest impact on developing passion for education, what would they be?
Well, it's I come back to one idea, and that is, again, living a life that you believe in.
Yeah.
Okay. But then the other thing is communicating out the things that we believe in. Okay. At our school, again, going back to our mission and vision and strategic themes and the things that we believe in, we're communicating it constantly. It's as I talk to our communications coordinator, I'm always we need to communicate and communicate some more, right? It's because we want it to be pervasive. We want the things that we believe in for students to be pervasive, throughout, through everything that we're doing, and we're constantly looking at that.
So when of the things we talked about today, a vision board, about the award for the people every year, what's the one strategy that you think has the biggest influence? If you were to guide another school in this is the route that I think if you could only do one thing, this is what I would do.
Well, again, if I can only do one thing, I would say it's about living that life.
Okay.
But the next thing I think is also is making sure that anything that's going on, that the community has ownership over it, and because by the community having ownership over that sense of us wanting to make sure our students are going out there and making a difference, of making sure that that we're impacting others, it's able to happen. And then I think the third one is that communication thing. We need to always keep it at the forefront. I mean, our curriculum meetings, for example, right now incorporate the aspects of compassion and the aspects of how how are we going to weave, for example, service learning into the curriculum? How are we going to make sure that's a part of the learning that's going on, and getting kids to look at the sustainable development goals and all of that. It's all about a lot of our discussions going on at school right now are about the things that we believe in.
Okay, so another question, if you reflect back on the other schools you've been at, because you are very experienced and you've moved around quite a bit. Again, if I remember correctly, you've been Pakistan, Bulgaria?
No, Romania.
Romania. Qatar, Venezuela. I want to say Cancun, but it's not. No.
Cayman Islands. Indonesia.
Yes. Yeah, so when you reflect back then, is there anything you wish you would have done then that you do now? Or is there experiences then that drove you to who you are now? I mean, really significant.
I can look at any job that I've had, and there's things that I wish I would have done differently. But the ultimately, really what it has come down to in every school is taking a look at what it is the community wants, making sure that we're listening to the community, but also, living the life that we believe in.
Driving your passion.
Absolutely.
Your passion for education.
Yes, absolutely. Not just education, but passion for students in education.
Yes, I should have framed it that way. That's a better way to put it. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be here with you, Ted.
That was a really good, and I think if there's one thing we can take away for me, I think the vision board in the meetings. I think that's really a great
vision stories.
Vision stories. Yes, I think that's a really great idea. I think that's something everyone could literally bring into their schools now,
and
weekly meetings.
And I wish I could say I made that up, but like I said, it came out of a leadership team retreat, and it was
That's
somebody
great.
else who brought that forward as part of a brainstorming session. And yeah, it is. It's a great way to remember what we're about and to really be looking for it.
Well, it's a great way to remind yourself of what you're passionate about. When you have those meetings and you're able to kind of get rid of the noise and talk about, this is who we are.
Right.
And this is who we want to be, and this is where we're going. How do we get there? And that's where these great ideas come from.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
thanks
thank you for
again.
having me.
You're
once
very
again.
welcome. Thank you for being a
Yes.
guest. We'll see Greg again in March, I want to say. But for now, thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
Okay.
All right.